Coming up on this Friday edition of Newsline at Noon, the main opposition party has accepted President Park Geun-hye's offer for a meeting on Monday of political leaders aimed at ending a months-long political stalemate that centers around Korea's spy agency. Washington says if Pyongyang has restarted its plutonium-producing reactor at Yongbyon, it would be a serious violation of UN resolutions. Russia warns if Pyongyang has indeed restarted its reactor, it will lead to dire consequences. Plus, as the U.S. and Russia seek ways to remove Syria's chemical weapons, Damascus formally applies to join the global poison gas ban. These stories and more on Newsline at Noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at Noon. I'm Choi Yu-sun in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Korea's main opposition Democratic Party has decided, after sleeping on it, to accept President Park Geun-hye's proposal for talks between herself and the leaders of the rival parties at the National Assembly, and it's going to be on next Monday.
And the opposition party has a very specific agenda for its talks with the president. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji has the details.
The Democratic Party's decision to accept President Park's proposal for talks was reached during a closed-door meeting of the party leadership Friday morning. As a result, party leader Kim Han-gil and his ruling party counterpart Hwang Woo-yeol will sit down for talks with the president at the National Assembly next Monday. On Thursday, President Park said she wanted to meet with the leaders of the ruling and the main opposition parties to address any concerns the two parties may have. She also said she would like to brief the National Assembly Speaker and Vice Speakers, as well as the leadership of the rival parties, on the success of her recent overseas trips to Russia and Vietnam, before meeting separately with the two party leaders alone. This marks the first time a sitting president has proposed visiting the National Assembly for a meeting with the leaders of the rival parties or for a briefing on a diplomatic tour. The Democratic Party wants to put the top and tail reform of the country's spy agency on top of the agenda for its talks with the president. The opposition party believes the National Intelligence Service systematically meddled in last year's presidential election, which it says is an outright violation of Korea's constitution. Party leader Kim Han-gil says President Park should show a willingness to put an end to the spy agency's interference in political affairs once and for all. Vast bipartisan differences over the role of the National Intelligence Service have paralyzed parliamentary operations for weeks, putting on the back burner urgent issues like next year's budget and measures aimed at reversing a slowing domestic economy. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Members of the six-party talks are digesting reports indicating North Korea may have restarted its plutonium-producing Yongbyon reactor. The U.S. has stressed that if the reports prove to be true, Pyongyang's move would violate a number of its international obligations. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Washington said Thursday it would be a very serious matter if North Korea had really restarted its research reactor at the Yongbyon nuclear complex. Recent satellite imagery suggests a 5-megawatt plutonium reactor at the facility may be back in action. The reactor is capable of producing 6 kilograms of plutonium a year that can be used for making nuclear weapons. U.S. Chief Nuclear Envoy Glyn Davis said that if the reports are true, North Korea is violating its international obligations.
It would violate a series of UN Security Council resolutions. It flies in the face of North Korea's own commitments and promises they've made over the years.
The Yongbyon reactor has been sitting idle since 2007, and the North had destroyed its cooling tower 5 years ago as one of confidence-building steps in six-party denuclearization talks involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia. What is confusing is that these latest reports come as Pyongyang appears to be showing a willingness to return to dialogue. North Korea's closest ally, China, noted the reports and reiterated its dedication to see the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula.
China has always dedicated itself to maintaining peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and to enacting its denuclearization. This is in the interest of all sides and requires the collaborative efforts of all sides.
Quoting a diplomatic source, Russia's Interfax news agency said the nuclear reactor, which was built in the 1950s, is in a nightmarish state and warned of dire consequences if it was restarted. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said it's following the reports, but added it doesn't yet have a clear understanding of the situation. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States have decided not to send government officials to a six-nation meeting to be held in Beijing next week. Seoul-based Yonhap news agency quotes unnamed sources as saying it's not the time for officials from the six nations involved in denuclearization talks to meet, given North Korea's attitude and the current mood. China had proposed an informal meeting of the six parties, which also include Japan and Russia, as it steps up efforts to revive the multilateral talks, which have been in limbo since December of 2008. The U.S. and South Korea appear to have lost confidence in the North amid reports that it has restarted a reactor at its nuclear facility in Yongbyon. North Korea is expected to send its top nuclear envoy to the talks. Scholars from Seoul and Washington are also expected to attend the meeting. South and North Korea have exchanged lists confirming whether wartime separated family members of each side's candidates for the upcoming family reunions are still alive. Late last month, the South Korean Red Cross passed on a list containing information about North Korean family members of 250 registered South Koreans, while receiving a similar list of 200 registered North Koreans and family from its northern counterpart. After today's exchange, the two sides plan to return with their final list of 100 each on Monday, with the priority placed on age and direct family membership. For the first time in nearly 3 years, the two Koreas will hold family reunions of those separated since the Korean War at the North's Mount Kumgang starting September 25th. In yet another sign of thawing inter-Korean relations, for the first time since the two Koreas were separated by the Korean War more than 60 years ago, South Korea's national flag has been publicly displayed in North Korea. The flag was proudly held afloat by a South Korean delegation at an international weightlifting event in Pyongyang. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
North Korea is hosting the Asian Cup weightlifting championships in its capital, Pyongyang. At the opening ceremony held at a sports arena in Pyongyang Thursday, the South Korean delegation entered the arena with South Korea's national flag, the taegukgi. It marks the first time the South Korean national flag has been publicly displayed in the North since two Koreas separated more than 60 years ago. In a surprising move, North Korea has also allowed South Korea's national anthem to be played and its flag displayed if a South Korean competitor wins a gold medal. 4 juniors and 18 senior South Korean players will compete for gold at the championships, which run through next Tuesday.
Under the leadership of the Workers' Party, sports in North Korea is developing day by day. I sincerely hope this competition held in Pyongyang will be successful going forward, and we truly celebrate this event.
This is the first time South Korean sportsmen and women have visited the North under the Park administration. And it's also the first time North Korea has hosted an international sporting competition since it held the International Ice Hockey Federation's Asian Oceanic Junior Championship in 1999. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
A group of retired Air Force chiefs have voiced their opposition to the aircraft the government is considering as its next fighter jet. The retired chiefs sent letters to the National Assembly, Presidential Office and the Defense Ministry opposing the purchase of the jet, the Boeing F15 Silent Eagle, emphasizing that it has no stealth capabilities. The letters come as the Defense Acquisition Procurement Administration is seeking to purchase 60 jets to replace its aging fleet of aircraft. The retired general said South Korea needs an asymmetrical air defense capability that is capable of dodging enemy radar to maintain its wartime capabilities in the future. South Korea's Defense Ministry is expected to release its final evaluation of the aircraft as early as this Friday. With the US Federal Reserve poised to start winding down its massive stimulus program soon, economic policymakers in Korea are trying to lessen fears about sudden capital outflows. Capital flight is already being seen in some emerging economies, but Korea is benefiting as investors see it as a safer bet than other countries. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Foreign buyers continue to buy Korean shares in bulk, bringing an influx of foreign capital into the country. Other markets across Asia aren't so fortunate, with investors pulling out of many other markets. Buoyed by foreign buying and receding geopolitical concerns, Korea's benchmark Kospi finished above the 2,000 mark Thursday for the first time in 3 months. Foreign investors made net purchases of $1.3 billion on Thursday, adding to the $6.2 billion over the past 15 days. This trend started in July with foreign investors buying Korean stocks to the tune of $750,000. This shot up to $2.2 billion in August. The Financial Supervisory Service says strong buying by U.S. investors last month was behind the highest monthly net foreign purchases in over 2.5 years. Analysts also attribute the bumper month to foreign investors pulling out of emerging economies in August. According to data by Hyundai Securities, while Korea recorded of around $2 billion of net foreign purchases in August, Taiwan saw around $1.5 billion of net foreign capital flight last month. Goldman Sachs says global economy seems to be steadily recovering, and countries like Korea and China should benefit the most from the rosier outlook. It also said foreign purchases will be limited in countries with weak currencies, such as India, Indonesia, and Thailand. Meanwhile, Korea-based Hanyang Securities Company says the purchasing trend is expected to continue, since incoming U.S. capital is mainly based on long-term funds. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's flagship carriers have agreed to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by improving the fuel efficiency of their aircraft. In an agreement signed Friday with the Transport Ministry, the country's 7 flagship carriers will aim to improve the fuel efficiency of their aircraft by over 2%. In exchange, the government will give the airlines additional benefits when they apply for new routes. The amount of greenhouse gas emissions by the 7 airlines is expected to reach 22 million tons in 2020, up from 17 million tons in 2010. The 7 flagship carriers are Korean Air, Asiana Airlines, Jeju Air, Air Busan, Jin Air, ESAJet and T-Way Air.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at Noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
To the latest on the Syrian crisis, Damascus has submitted a document to the United Nations to join an international convention on chemical weapons control. This comes as the U.S. and Russia begin talks on the Moscow-led plan to see Syria turn in its chemical arms. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
It looks as though the Russian-backed plan to put Syria's chemical weapons under international control is making headway. The UN announced Thursday that it received documents from the Syrian government asking it to join the Chemical Weapons Convention.
In the past few hours, we have received a document from the government of Syria, which is being translated, which is to be an accession document concerning the Chemical Weapons Convention.
If Syria joins the Chemical Weapons Convention, then it would become one of only 7 countries outside the International Convention to outlaw stockpiling chemical weapons. Speaking to Russian state TV Thursday, President Assad said Damascus was ready to give up its chemical weapons.
Of course, in the next several days, Syria will send an appeal to the United Nations and to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And this appeal will contain technical information which is needed in order to sign the agreement.
The Syrian president said Russia would play a key role in the process. Washington remains skeptical, with U.S. officials describing Russia's plan as doable but difficult. Regarding the probe into the chemical weapons attack that sparked the crisis, one Australian diplomat said there was a good chance the chief UN investigator's report on whether sarin gas was used or not would come out next Monday.
We expect to receive it sooner rather than later, but I have no precise timetable yet. My understanding is Dr. Sellstrom and his team need to finalize their work.
According to the Seoul-based Yonhap news agency Friday, UN investigators have submitted a report to the 5 permanent members of the Security Council with information on chemical weapons usage in the Syrian conflict. Meanwhile, the Russian and U.S. foreign ministers have begun their crucial meeting in Geneva to discuss Russia's proposal. Speaking before the talks, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the resolution of the chemical weapons issue would make any military strike by the United States unnecessary. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said he hoped diplomacy could prevent military action. Kim Young-geun, Arirang News.
Egypt's interim president has confirmed the country will extend its state of emergency for 2 months because of the current security situation. The nearly month-old state of emergency, which gives security forces greater powers of arrest, had been due to expire in the coming days. The government will decide separately whether to also extend a nighttime curfew, which has been in effect across much of the country. Egypt has been under a state of emergency since August after hundreds of people were killed in Cairo when security forces cleared out protest camps set up in support of deposed Islamist President Mohamed Morsi and his Muslim Brotherhood. Amid growing tensions with China, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has vowed to beef up his country's defense capabilities, saying that he will deal with any provocations head-on. Addressing the top brass of the self-defense forces Thursday, Abe was quoted by local media as saying he is pushing for the regeneration of Japan's security by looking squarely at reality. He reiterated his intention to strengthen the nation's defenses to ensure sovereignty over its territories. The Prime Minister added that he is planning to form a National Security Council that will integrate government functions, analyzing intelligence on defense and diplomacy. Tensions between the two nations have flared in the past year over a group of islands in the East China Sea claimed by both countries.
US carrier AT&T has unveiled discounted installment plan prices for Apple's latest iPhone 5S and 5C. AT&T says it will offer the higher-end 16GB iPhone 5S for $540 without a contract, which is $109 lower than the official price set by Apple. It will also allow users to pay the phone off in monthly installments. The cheaper iPhone 5C will be available for $440. Walmart plans to offer the 16GB iPhone 5S for $189 and the 16GB iPhone 5C for $79, $20 off the regular price, but they're both with a 2-year contract. Experts say Apple, which has maintained a policy of selling its devices at set prices for all distribution channels, may be jumping into a price war with its main rival, Samsung. Ending months of will they or won't they, shareholders in computer technology firm Dell have finally agreed to a $25 billion buyout that will see the company go private. The company announced Thursday that stockholders approved a buyout by founder, chairman and CEO Michael Dell and private equity firm Silver Lake Partners. Under the deal, shareholders will be paid just over just under $14 per share in cash. Dell's traditional businesses, PCs and server hardware, have fallen on hard times in recent years with the emergence of mobile devices such as tablets and smartphones. Michael Dell says he hopes the company's new private structure will give Dell the flexibility it needs to compete in today's market. It's official, the Voyager 1 probe is the first man-made object to have left the solar system. The Voyager 1 is now flying in an unexplored region in space between the stars. NASA scientists are calling this a historic leap into space. Connie Lee reports.
The Voyager 1 has crossed into a new frontier. The U.S. space probe has officially left the solar system and is now flying through the space among the stars. It's the first man-made object to venture into interstellar space, and it is the farthest man-made object from Earth. Scientists at NASA made the announcement on Thursday and said the spacecraft is about 19 billion kilometers from the Sun, nearly 40 years after it was launched.
Now, what does it mean to reach interstellar space? Well, first of all, we got there. I mean, this is something we all hoped when we started on this 40 years ago.
Officials say that the Voyager 1 has probably been traveling in interstellar space for about a year, based on information found by scientists last year.
It was in August 2012. That's when we saw the energetic particles inside the bubble leak out and disappear, and that's where we saw for the first time the lowest energy galactic cosmic rays, which are in the space outside, where suddenly could be seen.
The Voyager 1 was launched by NASA 36 years ago on September 5, 1977. It went out to study the outer solar system and interstellar space as it carries with it a golden record, which holds information about Earth and its people, just in case other forms of life find the disk.
This is truly a remarkable achievement, I believe. It's very hard for us, as I said, to comprehend that, the space age started 55 years ago, and in that period, we've actually exited the solar system.
The spacecraft will now study exotic materials in an unexplored region of the universe and radio the data back to Earth. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Well, let's now get an update on the forecast with our Ji-yeon standing by at the Weather Center. Hello to you, Ji-yeon.
Happy Friday, guys. Now, Korea's Fall Harvest Festival, Chuseok, is only 6 days away, and traditional markets and supermarkets are crowded with people buying Chuseok gifts for their families and friends.
Yes, you always know Chuseok is coming up when you see the supermarkets and the department stores full of the meat and fish and all those gift sets. Yes.
Right.
Well, I mean, as our Song Ji-sun reported yesterday, I believe, postal service workers are really busy trying to sort out the packages of presents for Chuseok.
Right. And which gift item do you think is the most wanted one for Chuseok? It's a gift certificate. It's not surprising, right? And if you're planning to go to Chuseok holiday shopping this weekend, Sunday seems like a better day for it weather-wise because it's gonna be soggy and rainy until tomorrow. Well, the heavy rain from last night doesn't seem to be thinning out anytime soon. In fact, the heavy rain advisories are still in effect in the Seoul and some of the surrounding areas, but it should let up in the mid-afternoon. And with the clouds and rain, our daytime highs will be tad lower than yesterday's. And as we can see, the clouds are covering the peninsula, dropping moderate to heavy showers to central regions. But once again, it should let up towards the later in the day. But it will rain nationwide again tomorrow from early in the morning till the later afternoon. But the rainfall won't be as heavy as today. And on Sunday, we'll finally see some sun. And next week, we'll have lots of sun. Well, right now, it's cooler and murkier than yesterday. So let's take a look at those numbers. The capital will climb up to 24 degrees Celsius. That's 75 degrees in Fahrenheit. And afternoon highs in Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan will get up into the high 20s with lots of clouds. Now let's see how other regions are looking. Jeju will have passing showers, while Daejeon and Dokdo will top out at 26. Well, that's all for me this week. Hope you have a great rest of the day and wonderful weekend. Now back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-yeon. And just a tip to all the drivers today, is really raining rather heavily outside, so be careful. And, well, those are the stories we're following. for this hour.
And we'll be back next Monday at the same time at noon, right here on Newsline at Noon.